Welcome to the Bonacci Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Bonacci. Today I have a very special guest. He's an absolute legend in the sport of MMA, former UFC Champion, UFC Hall of Famer, and my former employer, Mr. Randy Couture.
How are you, Jake? Good to see you, man.
Thanks for giving me some of your time today. So about 2 months ago, a friend of mine sent me a text at like 6 a.m. when I was peacefully drinking my coffee in the dark. And he said, you know, you've worked with a lot of interesting people, some great athletes. Did you ever think of doing a podcast? And I said, not enough to run with it.
Yeah.
And then that conversation ended and I was sitting there and I was like, well, if I did, you know, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And the vision was clear. It's exactly what we're doing right now. I wanted to do it, come to Vegas. I wanted to come to Extreme Couture where my career started and had to be with you. So
Wow.
you gave me my shot and I wanted to start right here.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think we were all trying to find our way in 2007. You know, Green found the facility, got tired of working out at the Ultimate Fighter set, basically. Whenever they had a new show, we had to find someplace else to work out. So we started looking for a space. Obviously, my first gym was Team Quest up in Oregon. And I learned some valuable lessons running that gym with Robert, Matt, you know, Dan Henderson. And that gym still exists. Matt still owns that and runs that gym up there. But we tried to do some things different based on my experience with Team Quest. And you were our first strength and conditioning coach. I wanted to try and bring everything we needed in MMA under one roof. That was our goal at Team Quest. And we didn't have the space for weight, you know, strength and conditioning stuff. I was still going to 24-hour fitness and other places to get that part of and piece of the puzzle in. Obviously, we found a facility that was big enough that we could actually create some fitness space and do our strength and conditioning and everything we needed for fighting right here on the same roof.
Yeah, and then in 2007, you didn't return till you were retired at the time as well.
I took 13 months off. I was going through a divorce. You know, the second Chuck fight had just happened, and I just didn't feel like myself. Didn't feel like I was training the way I knew I needed to be training, and just in general, just did not feel like myself. That divorce unfortunately lasted about 2 years, and when the dust finally settled, I ended up in that grappling match with Jacare de Souza.
I remember.
And that match was so much fun. I don't think anybody gave me, again, like the rest of my career, a snowball's chance in hell of hanging with this guy. We ended up in a draw, almost had him right at the end. And I knew I still had the competitive juices flowing, and came out of retirement to compete some more, had more to do.
Did you think after the Chuck fight, did you think you were done?
I wasn't sure. I just knew things weren't going well. I didn't feel like myself. I had just a lot of things going on in my personal life, frankly, that I needed to get to the bottom of and really kind of put to rest. And then I wasn't sure if I'd be done and it was time to walk away. I certainly wasn't a young man at that point. I was, in my 40s.
Hey now.
Well, that's the thing. I think we're seeing that across the board in athletics. What used to be 30 was kind of that, God, this guy's 33 and he's still competing.
Yeah.
Now I think that number has become 40
Well,
through the science of athletics. Guys like you that understand, how to train guys and all the different modalities available to us as athletes to get the most out of ourselves. And I think your guys across the board in every sport are now competing well into their 40s.
Yeah. So at the beginning of 2007, regardless of coming back to fight, were you still going to open this gym?
We were on our way to opening the gym regardless.
Okay.
Whether I was going to be competing or not. And it just felt like the right thing to do. I'm trying to remember how all that unfolded, honestly. But yeah, I think the gym was opening regardless of whether I was coming back, after the dust settled or not.
And then you announced you were coming back in like January, right, for the Tim Sylvia fight?
Yeah, that unfolded in a weird way. I was commentating for the UFC at that time on Fox, and I just commentated Tim Sylvia versus Jeff Munson up in Sacramento. And it was like watching paint dry. It wasn't a very exciting fight. And Tim had kind of gotten into this mode where he was fighting not to lose mentally. He didn't want to lose that belt. It meant a lot to him. And instead of going out and trying to knock guys out like he did in his early career, he was kind of fighting not to lose, which is the wrong mentality. I could see that. I also, having had him in the gym up at Team Quest for a number of weeks, and he literally stayed with me. We became friends. I trained with him every day for 3 weeks, I think, and he was getting ready to fight Rico Rodriguez for the heavyweight title. He ended up winning that fight. That was a fight I lost. I lost to Rico, caught an elbow and fractured my orbit. Probably the worst injury I've sustained in fighting. So I knew Tim well. psychologically, physically, tactically, technically, I felt like I had a very, very good chance of beating him, regardless of the 6'8" size and
Yeah.
that jab and that punching power. But like so many other guys, I knew if I could get my hands on him, make him wrestle me, he was going to have a problem.
But at that time, though, as a fan, as before I knew you, you just lost by knockout to Chuck. And then you're getting in there with frickin' Tim Sylvia, who
Yeah.
puts guys away too.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people thought I was nuts, but I've been called nuts several times.
Yeah.
You know, from my mom on down. You're doing what?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think in your heart, you just know. You know, it doesn't mean it's going to go your way, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, sun's still coming up, and the people that really matter aren't going anywhere.
Yep.
If you don't try, how will you ever know?
And you cracked him right away and dominated for 25 minutes.
Yeah, that I'm glad it went that way. Honestly, that was probably the closest I ever came to that one-punch knockout.
Mm-hmm.
And according to Pat Miletich, his head trainer, going into the 5th round, he didn't even know it was the 5th round. He was still discombobulated from that first punch. He grew a twin for sure, which is surprising. That he really had not recovered from that first 25 seconds and that punch, that overhand right. And I had worked on that combination my whole camp to break the ice. You try that first contact is what you always practice.
Yeah.
Because after that, you don't have time to think. It's a reaction sport. Action, reaction. If you're thinking about it, that moment passed and it's gone.
Yeah.
You aren't getting that done. So we had worked on that left inside kick. You watch the way Tim plods forward and uses his jab. His knees are a little bit knocked, and you kick that inside, that lead leg, and break his balance. That 6'8" comes down to 6'3" or 6'4",
Mm-hmm.
and that's exactly what happened. I hit that left inside kick. His head came down. I hit him with the overhand right. Was supposed to follow with that left hook, and he was gone.
Yeah.
He felt like a redwood. I was like, oh my God. I was as surprised as anybody else when he fell down.
Yeah.
The entire arena erupted, and I don't think they sat for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, that was crazy. So yeah, at that time I was in graduate school, and I had broken the ice here with an email because I was obviously a fight fan. I saw that you were opening this facility, and I had to do an internship that coming summer, and I was trying to figure out where to do it, and I saw that you were opening this place, and it was like, okay, that's what I'm going to gun for. I didn't think I had a shot in hell at getting it, and I mean, why would I? Right? I'm up in Minnesota in the middle of nowhere, and what are the odds of it, right? But I was emailing back and forth, and during the time when you fought Tim Sylvia, and when you won, I'm like, shit, no way am I going to hear from these guys now. No shot.
Yeah.
And I didn't for like 2 weeks. And then I got an email back, and it was saying, we'd allow you to come out to train the members for group classes, and verbatim, grunt work will be involved, mopping mats, all the, cleaning, etc.
Yeah.
And we're not going to pay you. I was like, perfect. Because I'm thinking, I was thinking like, I'm going to get to see you train.
Yeah.
I thought I was coming out and I was going to get to see you train whoever you were working with, and I'm going to take whatever I learn and whatever's next is next,
Yeah.
But then I find out, because I didn't meet you for a couple weeks. You weren't around. And then when I did, you were like, I introduced myself, and you're like, I'd like to get some work in with you one of these days. And I was like, holy cow. Like, I thought I was just going to be watching, And then the first workout I remember very well, because I was nervous as hell coming into it, obviously. This is like a big chance, big audition, basically. And I came in, and again, not knowing you at all, I didn't know like the way you went about your business and training. You're quiet, you don't say anything. So I thought the perfect plan on paper, I'm ready. And we're going through the workout, and you didn't say a word to me like the whole time. Nothing. Like during rest periods, usually people talk a little bit. And you were saying nothing, and I'm like, oh, he's not liking this. This isn't good. And I was like, stick to the script, Yeah, and then...
This is so funny.
Yeah, it's true. And then afterwards, you're sitting there sweating, leaving a lake on the floor.
As I did.
Yeah, and you're like, I'd like you to, structure my strength and conditioning for this camp because you're fighting Gabriel Gonzaga. And I'm like, yes, sir. Acting cool, but I wasn't. I was like, holy shit. I remember going right out the front door, grabbed my phone, I called my brother. I'm like, you wouldn't believe this. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, man. I'm like, I'm going to be working with him for this fight camp. And then it was all about getting up to speed. Because in 2007, there wasn't a ton of material out there for training combat sports athletes. In fact,
you're correct.
Yeah, there really wasn't any. So I was reaching out to sources. I knew, I had done a 600-hour internship at Impact Sports Training in Duluth, Minnesota, with Chris Bell, which prepared me well enough. He taught me periodization, he taught me how to program and things of that nature, but not for combat sports. People don't understand unless you're around it every day, which I had an advantage of being at the gym all day.
Yeah.
I saw the output. I saw the intensity and the output that you guys were going through. So that helped, kind of dictate what I was going to do. I didn't want to be burning the candle from both ends. I wanted to be an asset,
Yeah.
not a liability.
Yep.
And that took time to figure out too.
Yeah. Well, you did a great job. And what I liked and what I saw you do was communicate with my other coaches. Now, you don't know this, but you're the only strength coach I'd ever had. I did it all myself before that. I came up with that bar complex. I did all that stuff myself, trained myself. I never had a strength coach ever as a fighter until you. You were the first.
Crazy.
And then you always communicated well with the striking coach, the grappling coach, those other modalities, so that I wasn't smoked so bad when it came to live goes and stuff from doing my strength and conditioning. Because what? Strength and conditioning is supposed to be supplemental to the actual time on the mat. And you were the first guys that I saw coordinate that strength conditioning workout with what I was doing on the mat with the other coaches.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge piece of that puzzle that made that work.
And as far as like your training in particular, my approach with it was like, you always had a great gas tank. I wasn't going to come in and reinvent the wheel on your conditioning and stuff like that, but the strength work, I wanted you to do quality strength work where we were actually going to get you stronger in the weight room. And that required taking rest periods, which you don't like that. I remember I'd be sitting there like, man, we got a 2-minute rest here. And you were pacing around like you're used to doing your bar complex, ripping through everything. You redlined everything.
Yeah.
And trying to put the leash on, I think you were bored in those little rest periods.
Yeah. I had the wrestler's mentality for sure, which was go, 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 go. And I think, part of my journey was going up to Seattle from Team Quest with Nate Corey and training with Matt Hume and Maurice Smith. Yeah, I learned some valuable lessons. I had to fight Pedro Hizo again in a rematch, and he kicked me in my lead leg 14 times in that first fight. And I didn't want to experience that again. That's honest. I mean, I didn't walk right for 6 weeks after that fight. Swollen leg turned black. I mean, talk about massage therapy, and I never wanted to punch a massage therapist so bad in my life. She was trying to rub out all those pockets of blood and stuff in that muscle, and I still have a dent in that quad from this day. And going up and training with Mo and Matt, those guys hardly ever sparred live. And we were the opposite end of that spectrum at Team Quest. There was holes in every piece of sheetrock in that gym from running guys into the wall, and we just beat the dog crap out of each other every single day. And I realized through that experience that we were too far this way, and they may have been too far that way, that we needed to kind of find that middle ground. Have red flag days where you're coming in and you're going hard no matter what, and other days that were more situational and you're pulling back, breaking it down, learning new tactics, new technique, new positions. And I think that gym started to really flourish when we made that adjustment. And I got to bring, like I said, some of those valuable lessons from Team Quest into this gym. You're the first strength coach I ever had. We did all that at Team Quest. We didn't have a strength coach on staff. Obviously, I had a strength coach at Oregon State as the coach there, and became the strength coach there in my last year there. When I left my coaching position, he kept me on as a strength coach to work with the wrestlers and still wrestle with those guys every day. But I had a great, Mickey Ward was our strength coach at Oklahoma State. And that complex a lot of that complex came from him and my time working under him as a wrestler at Oklahoma State for 4 years. So you had a fresh perspective. You had no ego. So you were willing to work with these other coaches and figure out how to make this happen and make this work best and get the most out of us.
Yeah, and I think the benefit of that is with communication with the coaches was really like making sure you guys weren't redlining. Like volume and intensity was out of control. Everything was all out.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I think my approach, it's not easy I was 25 years old and you were quite solidified as a champion of the UFC to like try to get you to pull back a little bit. More quality strength training, not crazy, the complex that was an endurance. I mean, it was hell.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
But more quality to keep your body strong. So, and he fought till 47, right? So
yeah, 47. And I was still competing at a high level and felt good. Just the discs in the neck were worn out.
Yeah.
And I had a herniated disc in '99. managed to get through that. You know, I had some serious atrophy and weakness in my left side that recovered through traction, and I stopped doing anything on the top of my head. All the old wrestling modalities, bridging and all that stuff is horrible for your neck.
Yeah.
And we all have overdeveloped neck muscles, which creates a straight cervical spine instead of a curved cervical spine. That's what puts disc pressure. When you straighten that out and overdevelop those neck muscles, that puts stenosis. It puts pressure on all those discs. And I don't know a wrestler that doesn't have an 80-year-old neck from all of that. But that ultimately was the decision I had to make at 47. It took me a year to come to terms with that decision. You know, the James Toney fight, I had every old injury that ever occurred flare up during that camp. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And it was the first time ever that subconscious voice, my crazy roommate, said, hey, maybe it's time to think about doing something else for a living. And I think once you start having that kind of internal dialogue go on, you have to take that seriously. You have to consider that that's a possibility. And it took me a year. I was like, I don't want to go out on James Toney. I want to go out on a real fight. Not that James wasn't a real fight. That's probably not fair to James, but you know what I mean. And so I decided that Leota was going to be the last one. I didn't tell a lot of people because I knew it would take on a life of its own. But I didn't want to keep jacking around, grinding out camps until I had to have a fusion and a surgery. Everybody I know that's had that has no range of motion and they're still in pain. Why? What, you know, now they have new disc replacement technology and all kinds of stuff, but I'm too old. They say I'm too old to even qualify for that. So it is what it is.
Going back to my internship summer of 2007, you know, we ended up, you know, we trained for the Gonzaga fight, training camp. And then it was like, for me, that was like the ultimate high, getting to go to that event, you win, you know, defend the belt. And then I was thinking the other day, 2 days after that fight, I was driving through a cornfield in Nebraska. And I was thinking like, man, 2 nights ago, I was at the Mandalay Bay, sold out, the highest of highs. And you guys had offered me the job, and yeah, I trusted that it would still be there in January. But at the same time, I was like, man, this sucks. I was going through like, I gotta go back to school, which, you know, I just wanted to be done. You know, it was a hot moment, and I had to like, next thing I'm in Nebraska, man, like in the middle of nowhere.
That's funny.
Another funny thing I've never shared with you. After the Gonzaga fight, well, let's rewind. About 3 years before that, 4 years before that, I was getting my undergrad, and we're sitting in class, and I never said shit in class. I was pretty quiet. The teacher randomly calls on me. He's like, Jake, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I was like a sophomore, I think, in college. And I didn't have enough time to think of like a generic answer to take the spotlight off me. So I said, I want to train fighters in Las Vegas. And he looks at me. He's like, oh, like what kind of fighters? And I said, combat sports, MMA and boxing. Because like you had just done the Ultimate Fighter. The sport was blowing up at that time. And he's like, well, do you have any connections out there? I'm like, nope. And he's kind of like smirking at me, you know, like, he's like, well, if you could train anyone, who would you want to train? And I said, Mike Tyson, because he was still active at that time. It was like 03, he was still fighting it. And he laughs at me and he goes, I suggest you don't put all your eggs in that one basket. And I was like, all right. So the night after your fight, that shit stuck with me for years.
Oh, wow.
I got back after the after party, probably had a few drinks. I get home, I rip out my laptop, and we had taken a picture with the belt after the fight, and I uploaded it to my computer, and I emailed them. It was like 4 a.m. And I said something along the lines like, your job as an educator should be to encourage and not discourage. I'm certainly glad I didn't take your advice. I put all the eggs in one basket, and I attached that photo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did he respond?
No.
Wow. That's amazing, but you're right.
Yeah. And because he punked me, you know, like in front of the whole class, basically. And then I ended up training Mike Tyson in Florida, too. So.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I did. I worked with Mike for a while.
Yeah, manifest destiny.
That's right. So, yeah, I come back from grad school, then I was here full time from 2008 to 2013. We did the last 7 fights of your career. And I mean, the team was incredible at that time.
We did have a great group here.
I mean, like I was talking to Ryan yesterday, the list of names I would walk through the store every day were absolutely incredible. What's your health and wellness like today? What do you do as far as training?
I do a lot of circuit training. I would love to be competing in grappling. You know, I've been doing that since I was 10 years old. Unfortunately, the discs in the neck, like I said, are worn out, and there's no way to kind of do that halfway. You either do it or you don't do it.
Yeah.
So I don't do much grappling anymore. Occasionally I'll teach wrestling on Wednesdays. I think that's what I bring to the table as far as technique and tactics. Especially Greco, I got exposed to a style that's not terribly popular here. So
Hmm.
I can show some of that dirty boxing and some of that Greco stuff that not a lot of other athletes get exposed to that kind of tactic and technique. And then the other styles, collegiate wrestling, I think applies too. Most of these guys haven't been in a college program, didn't have access to a sports psychologist, a trainer, any of those things that we were fortunate enough here through you and the other folks that were here to have access to here.
Yeah.
And so making these guys wrestle, they don't like it, but it's exactly what they need to do because it's a
Right.
different mentality. Just like
Hmm.
you were saying, it's a go, go, go mentality.
Hmm.
Everything's, maximum effort. We're one of the few sports I think that have that mindset,
Yeah.
honestly. So, I mean, now I do a lot of circuit training. I'll do some light sparring with friends, people that I know,
Yeah.
because whether we like it or not, I have that last name on my back. I'm
Yeah.
dragging that around, and everyone's, oh, I tapped him out. I knocked him out. Unfortunately, the guys that have tapped me out and knocked me on my ass are remarkable, and I don't think I know any of them.
Yeah. um, so you mentioned the sports psychology. You
Hmm.
had access to that in the wrestling world. You use that as well in your career, right? You had a sports
Absolutely.
psychologist.
Absolutely. I had the good fortune of being on a national team for almost 20 years. And we had a sports psychologist that was dedicated to us. I had his number. I could call him anytime I want. He wrote a couple books. I had his book, Wrestle to Win by B.Z. Hendricks. I don't know if it's up there or not. Might be up there. But I learned a ton from him on the national team. And then all of those mental skills translated to fighting and dealing with the adversity of this sport of
Hmm.
MMA, which is very volatile. And I think, I mean, we always say it, but we got it backwards. 90% of athletics is mental. But we spend all of our time working on the physical skills and very, very little time, if any, working on the mental skills
Yeah.
it takes to address that adversity. And especially in an individual combative sport like fighting or wrestling, it becomes very prominent. It's a huge piece.
I remember on fight week too, after training, you would train at night and you would kill the lights in the gym and were you visualizing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Visualizing that night. I'd seen that fight 100 times before I ever walked out of that tunnel.
Hmm.
And I would do that at the end of a lot of practices. Lay there in Lake Couture, my sweat puddle,
Hmm.
and visualize, that fight. I saw that fight 100 different ways with that one common denominator. I always got my hand raised at the end.
Yeah. I was around for a few of the fights. I was in the locker room before you went out, and I've been around other guys as well. But like, you were super calm before the storm, like sleeping.
Yeah,
I remember before the
yeah. People
Gonzaga
would
fight.
freak out because they would come. First of all, we show up to the damn arena hours before you need to really be there.
Yeah.
There's some hoops you have to jump through with the commission. They just want you there because they want to control what you're doing. You have a commission member that's assigned to you the second you show up to the arena, and that guy follows you everywhere, including the bathroom, because they
Yeah.
don't know if you're trying to mask performance enhancing
Right.
drugs or what. So you literally have a guy that's attached to your hip everywhere from the second you show up at that arena, and they want you there early. So there's hours
Yeah.
that if I get in my head, I'll start working out, I'll start warming up, and I've got hours before I need to even be in that mode.
Hmm.
So I would find a spot, lay down, and put a towel over my eyes and visualize and go to sleep.
Yeah.
And people would freak out, like, what the hell? He's fighting in a couple hours. That would freak them out somehow.
Yeah. I saw it, and I was quite surprised by that. How chill you were before, and I remember before the Gonzaga fight. Speaking of staying calm and staying level at all times, like you've mastered. Remember you forgot your mouth guard?
Yeah.
So that was like right before the fight. Like it was like almost go time.
Yeah.
And they had to run back here to grab your mouthpiece out of
Yes.
the locker. And I remember everybody was freaking out, about how we're going to get it, blah, blah, blah. And you were just like, I remember your quote, well, they can't start without me.
I did that more fighting here in Vegas because you're home.
Yeah.
When you're going to some other city, you pack all your stuff and you make sure everything's in its place and in your bag and all that because there is no going to get it.
Yeah.
And when you got a locker 15 minutes away that's got
Yeah.
all your stuff in it, inevitably I'd forget my cup and I'd forget my mouthpiece and somebody'd be running to the gym to get that stuff.
But like you weren't even rattled. You was like, all right, whatever, they can't start without me. And everybody else was freaking out. And then I remember before the Brock Lesnar fight, before you walked out for that one too, like right before we left the dressing room, you looked at me and was like, well, let's go get into a fight. And I'm just like, damn, I was freaking out, like inside, everybody's nervous, but you.
Well, I don't know. Again, I think programming yourself, shutting that internal dialogue off, give it those affirmations, those positive things that are going to keep you in the groove and keep you thinking the right things. Make it say those things until it doesn't have any choice. It doesn't chatter and say all the other what ifs and the other crap.
Did you get nerved up though? Were you, or are you just not showing it? Like when you made those walks, what was
I
that?
think, you definitely, there's no way you don't. And if you didn't, you're probably a sociopath, to be frank. But there's no way. But learning to control that, not have that huge adrenaline dump
Hmm.
as your song starts playing and you got to walk out in front of 20,000 people
Yeah.
in your board shorts. I saw it, like I said, hundreds of times before I actually had to do it.
Yeah.
And I was always smiling. Like, what is wrong with this guy? He knows he's going to a fight, right? He's winking at people and smiling, and they thought I was somehow crazy.
Because I mean, you never got into the verbal stuff with opponents or anything. You weren't
No.
really a guy that brought trash talk from other people, I don't think. I know Tito talked some shit to you like before
Yeah, I
that
gave
fight.
it back to Tito a little bit, but I knew what I signed up for when I signed to fight him.
Yeah. Um, but that fight too, I think I owe my parents pay-per-view money for that one
Oh,
still. Yeah, I talked them into. I would build up these fights like they didn't care. I'd build up these fights so I could order the pay-per-view. I was in college, I didn't have any money.
that's funny.
Yeah. Who was your toughest go? Who was your toughest opponent when you look back and think about the guys you were in there with that you're like, I would not want to do that again?
That first Pedro Hizo fight
Yeah.
was the toughest fight. It was in Atlantic City and at Taj Mahal. And it was the first time seeing my big mug in a billboard. That was right after Zuffa had bought the brand
Hmm.
from the old owners, SCG and Bob Meyerowitz. And they had signed Pedro to a 9-fight deal, biggest deal anybody had ever gotten. I think they were sure they were going to get rid of me finally as their heavyweight champ. They didn't think I was marketable. I was in my 40s when they bought the company. And that was a barn burner of a fight. He kicked, like I said, 14 times in my lead leg, broke my nose. It was a barn burner, but I went back. A lot of people thought I lost that fight, and I went back and analyzed it, and like, oh, I clearly won 3 of the 5 rounds. He won 2 of the 5 rounds.
Hmm.
I mean, he kicked me 2 times and literally took my feet out from underneath me.
Yeah.
That guy could kick like a damn mule. He was all hips and thighs.
The recovery was brutal after that.
Oh man, that was a rough one. I didn't walk right for a while.
So
After
Pedro
that one.
Hizo's the answer
Yeah,
to that question.
Pedro,
That was the one.
definitely. Broke my nose. By the time I got my hand raised and wanted to go walk out of that cage, I'd seized up. I could hardly walk. I had to have my corner guys carry me. That was the first fight my mom attended in person.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, but she's like, I'll never watch it again on TV. And she never missed a fight after that.
Yeah.
It took me a while to talk her into coming, but
Yeah, that's cool. If there's one fight looking back on your career that you could ask for a redo.
yeah, there's one. I fought in the semifinals of the KOK tournament in Japan, the King of Kings tournament. Danny Henderson, one of my
Hmm.
best friends and training partners, had won that tournament the year before. He won 200K in cash. And then I entered it the next year.
What year was this?
This was 2000. Just coming out of the Sydney Games.
That's
I didn't make
that's
the
an
team.
abnormal payday though, right? At that time?
At that time, that was exceptionally large.
Yeah.
And Danny had won it in 99, and then I entered the tournament in 2000. I won the first round. In the semis, I had Overeem, the brother, not Alistair, the one that fought in the UFC,
Yeah.
but his brother,
Valentine.
And I shot a horrible shot. It was in a ring, which ring tactics are completely different than cage tactics. I fought way more in a cage than I did a ring. And we'd actually developed a bunch of cage tactics for taking guys down, bouncing them, trampolining them off the cage and stuff like that. You don't have that option in a ring. I shot a horrible double on my knees, got caught in a guillotine, and ended up having to tap. And he was a very good kickboxer. I think I gave him too much respect there. I should have engaged there and not just been out to take him down.
Did you ever come close to fighting in Japan for Pride?
They made me an offer, and I saw this with Dan. Like I said, Danny and I started this sport together at the same time, and Danny was hugely popular in Japan, and nobody really knew who he was in the U.S. market.
Right.
And I had done most of my fighting in the U.S. market, so I had endorsement deals and a bunch of stuff that he wasn't getting, as well as that recognition, because I was fighting in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
So they made me a cash offer that was a reasonable, good cash offer.
Mm-hmm.
But I weighed out what the UFC was offering me and versus what Pride was offering me, and I chose to stay in the U.S. market and stay with the UFC.
If there's any match that you could have had from the guys that were over in Pride, who would it be?
Yeah, you know that answer would
Fedor?
have been Fedor.
Yeah.
I mean, he beat the who's who over there. Every ranking at that time had him ranked #1 in the world. So of course that's the guy I want to fight. You know, don't rank me #2 until we fought.
Yeah. Was that ever close? I mean, I remember you're trying.
I put them on notice and about that and some other things and said that's the fight I want. They went to negotiating with him and they had come to terms with the money, but M1 Global, which kind of owned him
Yeah.
and his destiny, wanted a co-promotion. And the UFC said, no way. We are not putting you over. We're not doing a co-promotion. We'd love to have him and we'll sign him to a contract. It was a significant amount of money too. A lot more than I was going to be making. But they wouldn't do the co-promotion, so M1 pulled him out and said no.
Because you were out after the Gonzaga fight for over a year.
Yeah, and that was part of that. I had Mark Cuban stepped up and said, man, I'll help you make that fight happen. I have American Airlines Arena in Dallas. We can do the fight there. I have Access TV. We can get the media and everything on board with that fight. I'll help you make that fight happen. So I resigned as a heavyweight champ with the UFC to pursue and try to make that fight happen. And I did that for a year, a little over a year. Spent a lot of money. They filed injunctions to keep that from happening. Would have taken a judge to basically decipher the contract and whether I was legally able to go fight him somewhere else or if I had to honor the contract. Their goal was to run me out of money. They knew I didn't have deep pockets like they did. I mean, they have staff lawyers, for crying out loud.
Right.
So I spent a lot of money trying to make that fight happen and had to come to the realization that it just wasn't going to happen.
You know, it's crazy. After you fought Brock Lesnar, you lost the title to Brock. Then remember he brought you out to help him train.
Yeah, that was actually very interesting.
Was that for who did he
Carwin.
Shane
He
Carwin.
was getting ready to fight Carwin, who was another very good wrestler and a big guy. They asked us if we'd be interested in coming out for a couple weeks and training with him. And I was good friends with his head trainer, Marty Morgan, from wrestling.
Yeah.
We'd wrestled each other. I'd wrestled his brother. I knew his other brother, Marty, or Gordy. There was Gordy, Marty, and John, the three Morgan boys that were all Greco guys. And I'd wrestled John and Marty at one time or another. They were great guys and great competitors. And Marty was his head coach. So I was happy to go out. It was very interesting. He had his own gym. It was private.
I was with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. I haven't seen that many big guys in one room ever.
Yeah, I remember that. He had some big heavyweights there.
Yeah.
And
but nobody was saying what needed to be said.
True.
I think everybody was scared if they rocked the boat at all, they were going to get uninvited.
Right.
And I didn't really care. So I kind of said some things. He hadn't really made friends with getting punched in the face. That's the truth of the matter. And we saw it against Velasquez and we saw it against Overeem.
Yep.
Even when I hit him with that left hook and cut him, he was like wide-eyed looking at his own blood. And he just hadn't made friends with that. I don't care how fast or good you are. You're going to get hit. You better make friends with that. And I had showed him that arm triangle that he ended up catching Carwin with as well. I enjoyed the camp. It was a cool area.
Because we started your camp for James Toney while we were there. That was that time. Yeah, his training camp was cool. It was in the middle of nowhere in that hangar.
Yeah.
It was
awesome. It was a cool place. He had a lot of great equipment in there. And yeah, it was a very cool little place.
Because I got to hang out and watch his strength and conditioning work too. So I learned some things from that. It was a good experience. But also like that's purely like what mixed martial arts is about though. Like that guy beat you not that long ago. And you were humble enough to go there and help him.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you got to check your ego at the door. I mean, that's been our motto at this gym since we founded it. It's only going to get in the way.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to go there and train with him, train with his guys, Marty, who I knew well, and learn.
Yeah.
And I did learn, just like you got to see some things and learn some things. I learned some things too.
When you were growing up, were you a combat sports fan? Did you watch anything? Did you have guys that you looked up to in the fight world?
No. Well, I love boxing.
And
obviously, Muhammad Ali was everybody's favorite, I think, or most people's favorite. I was a huge Joe Frazier fan too.
Okay.
And I actually get to meet him in Lincoln, Nebraska at one point when I was in college. He was just walking down the road. I'm like, that's frickin' Joe Frazier. We all ran out of our hotel lobby to stop him on the street and talk to him.
Yeah.
I loved boxing. It was the one thing my mom forbid me to do was box.
Yeah.
I'll let you play football, but you were not boxing. And I was sneaking away to the Linwood Elks and she caught me.
Yeah.
We laugh about it now, but so I was a big fan of boxing.
Yeah.
And then again, I started wrestling at 10. But
Mhm.
my heroes as a kid were skiers.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an Olympic skier.
Yeah.
Franz Klammer, Jean-Claude Keeley, the Mayer brothers, who were from my home state of Washington. White Pass, Washington is where they were from.
I sent you some messages on Instagram a couple months ago when you were over in, was it Abu Dhabi or Dubai, and you were they had all the great fighters there.
Yes. I went over there for the Francis Fury fight.
Yes, that's what it was.
And they had 50 of the top boxers over the last 3 decades, I would say, that were at that fight and at that show. And it was an amazing, I have that picture. I should probably blow it up and put it in a frame, because
Yeah.
it was a unique picture.
Yes.
There was 5 or 6 of us from the MMA world that were there. And then any boxer just about that you can name was in that photo.
That's alive. They were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Lennox Lewis,
Yep.
Holyfield, like
Yeah.
Tyson was there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody was there. I mean, who's who? It was an amazing experience for sure.
Was there anybody, like, obviously you've met a ton of people, you've been all over the world. Is there somebody that stands out that you met, like, whenever, where you were like, wow, that's that person? Like, it was like a wow factor.
I think the first time meeting Stallone, and I met him first at the Arnold. He was promoting a In Stone was the name of his supplement company
Mhm.
at the Arnold Classic. And of course he had a mob of people following him around everywhere he went there. But that was my first time there. I had a booth. I just won, the championship, and they gave us a booth, and we sold a bunch of shirts, and we're there. And he stopped at my booth, and I took a picture with him. And that was the first time I'd met him. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That was something.
I saw him at an event at a UFC at the Palms that summer when I was interning here. And that,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I grew up watching Rocky.
Yeah,
and
who
everything.
didn't?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was
Rocky, Rambo, I mean,
Mhm.
all that.
Yeah.
I mean, they filmed Rambo in my home state of Washington too, is one of the reasons I love that movie.
And then you ended up being part of his movies.
In The Expendables,
Yes.
yeah. There's a call you don't pass.
Yeah.
My agent calls me, hey, Stallone wants you to come by his office. He wants to talk to you about a project. I'm like, I'll be there.
Yeah. I remember when you were filming, I can't remember what movie you were filming, but it was during the Gabriel Gonzaga training camp, I believe. And you asked me if we could work out at like 5 in the morning because you had to get to some sort of something to do with the film. And then you were going to be back in time for pro practice. You had to go to LA in the day, and you were going to be back in time for pro practice. And I'm like, how is this guy pulling this off? Because we trained at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
You flew to LA, did what you had to do there, and you were back at 4 o'clock for pro practice.
Huh.
And I was like, holy cow. Like, that's
yeah.
what we were talking about earlier. Like, the standard here was stuff like that. I mean, people seeing that, and like, that has to rub off on your teammates. Like, the work ethic, the commitment, the professionalism, all of that had to have helped them immensely. Because I've trained other places, and the standard wasn't the same all the time. And I was warped in my thinking that everybody was like this in MMA. Like, everybody showed up on time, everybody, and it's not true.
Yeah.
So like, this culture that you created is really special here, and it's still going.
Yeah, it's still going. I think that was, some of that was probably the Army in me. Some of that was Robert. I mean, Follis felt like that was a disrespect. You show up to practice 10 minutes late. We've already started warm up and all that. That's disrespectful, not only to him as the coach or me as the coach, but all your workout partners. So that was kind of the message that always got put out. Certainly didn't want to show up to wrestling practice at Oklahoma State 10 minutes late.
Right.
You did not want to walk in that room after that.
Right.
Just the way it was. It was the right way to be too, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's professionalism.
Yeah.
But, some people, the clock doesn't matter.
No.
And that, I experienced that, in different, since working here, and that was something, it caught me off guard, honestly, because I never dealt with that here. I never dealt with people like flaking out on workouts.
Yeah.
I never dealt with people like not showing up. That just didn't happen. The group of guys that were here, I mean, they were very committed.
Yeah, they were very diligent. We had an amazing crew back then.
Yeah.
We really did.
What was, as far as MMA goes and like your UFC career, what was the night? If you look back and think of one.
I think the night was the first Belfort fight in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. That was such a crazy fight in a tent on the shore of the Mississippi River. 1,500 people in that place. Nobody thought I would beat him, and nobody thought I had a chance to win that fight. And I believed if I got my hands on him, he was going to have a problem. He had no idea what was coming. And that's exactly how the fight unfolded. By the 8th minute, I had made him wrestle so much, and dirty boxing was born in that fight. Collar tying him and just wearing him out. And he collapsed out of fatigue more than anything. I didn't have that kind of power, but I would damn sure set a pace that we were going to have trouble keeping.
Yeah.
And I think that particular fight set the tempo for the rest of my career.
Yeah. And then he ends up training here with you.
He ended up coming here and training. You know, we ended up fighting 2 more times.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy. I really like Vitor. And he's one of the raw athleticism. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Explosive and strong.
Yep.
Obviously, great boxing. You know, southpaw, and he started everything with that left hand. And then jab, cross, jab, cross, jab. If you were standing there, you were going to get smoked.
Yeah. So the night you're saying was the first Belfort fight, that was the one you really look back at and think
that was the one that's
which
like
is surprising, I guess, to me, because I'm thinking it's going to be like, I was going to say the Tim Sylvia fight. I was thinking it was going to be
that's my favorite. That crowd was ridiculous.
Yeah.
The biggest crowd in North America at that time. And then we eclipsed that in Toronto, my final fight, with 55,000 that night. But 22 or 23,000 that night in Nationwide Arena. And I don't think they sat down after that first punch. It was wild.
Yeah, I remember that very well. So I put on my Instagram a while back, like yesterday, if you could ask Randy Couture any question, what would it be? So we got a couple here for
cool.
you. People wrote in. Favorite film you've been a part of? Or upcoming films that you're excited about?
I've got one out right now called F+. It's a kids movie, G-rated. I had a blast filming this with a bunch of 11, 12-year-olds that you'd think, oh, this is going to be a nightmare. Not at all. They were awesome. And I play an aggro junior high school security guard. It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
I've got one coming out called Pitfall. It's a horror flick. It premieres this Wednesday in LA.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure what platform it's going to end up on, but it's a horror flick coming out right before Halloween. It's got a little heart and soul to it. It's flashbacks as to what made me the madman that I am, running around hunting campers and hikers. And each one of those people I'm hunting has their little backstory that gets highlighted too, which I liked about this script and this story. Obviously, the biggest I've ever been a part of has been The Expendables.
Yeah. Is that still going?
We just did 4 in 2021, and it started airing in 2022. There's some scuttlebutt now about a 5. 4 was interesting and a lot of fun. We shot in the UK. We shot back in Bulgaria, where we shot 2 and 3. We shot a little bit in Greece, in Thessaloniki, Greece, which was interesting. A brand new studio there. A lot more of a Statham movie than the other 3.
Oh, okay.
Sly's taken a step back in 4, and it was way more of a Jason Statham movie.
Cool.
But hopefully we get to do a 5. You know, nobody does that better than Sly. And I'm hearing rumors that Guy Ritchie might be interested in directing a 5. I hope that's true. I don't know if that's true.
Cool. All right. Well, that's exciting. Did you have any problem fighting guys that were your friends or acquaintances?
It was never an issue for me because again, that wrestler's mentality. I had to wrestle some of my best friends for that spot on the team, that varsity spot. One of us was going home pissed off.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean they weren't my friend. I mean, you know, this was a huge factor in the Sylvia fight, in my opinion, because Tim had to talk to get himself in the right mindset and create some animosity. And he hoped you would give that back to him, so then he could be pissed at you and go out and punch you in the face.
Yeah.
And we were friends. Like I said, he stayed with me for 3 weeks before he ever fought Rico and won the title. And I liked him. Tim's a good dude.
Yeah.
And I knew that psychological piece was going to be a problem for him facing me.
You were able to compartmentalize, though. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think as athletes, we learn to do that very, very well. Put your emotions in a box, set them to the side, stay laser focused on what you train to do. Now they want me to walk in front of a camera and let all that stuff out. I'm like, I don't think I know how to do that.
Yeah. Which, if any, of your fights did you enter either injured or mentally unfocused?
I don't think I ever entered one mentally unfocused. Chuck 2 and Chuck 3, I wasn't in a good headspace at all going through the divorce, which ultimately led me to walking away from the sport for a while. But I don't think I ever walked into a fight 100%.
Yeah.
Ever. I just don't think you do. You mitigate, you figure out workarounds, and you're never 100%. You got bruises and beat. If you're training right, You're going to be a little
Yeah.
beat up. There's no way around it. And there's where that 7-day, rest period going into fight week, or going into fight night rather, is very important. Get your legs back under you. Don't let that voice start telling you, oh, I should have done more sprints. What if I get tired? That's what happens. The what ifs come in.
Yeah.
What if he does this? What if the ref does that? You can't control any of that crap.
Yeah.
So why are you spinning out over things you have no control over? So I think staying calm, relaxed, have a trust in your plan. And we sat down and we drew a map how to get to that night from that night we were sitting in right then with all those coaches.
Yep.
And they wanted to sharpen this tool or that tool, and these are the strength and condition things we were going to work on to put me in the best position to win that fight. We wouldn't go from here to Dallas without drawing a map or looking at a map. It's the same thing is true in our sport.
Yep. And this one here is from somebody you know.
Oh.
Will you come out of retirement and fight me? Sincerely, Jimmy Jones.
Jimmy Jones. Jimmy's one of a kind. I love Jimmy.
Is that
You're
a
not
yes
in my
or a
weight
no?
class.
I don't think he cares.
He doesn't care. Well, then it's a yes. The geriatric division, even though he doesn't qualify yet.
No, not yet. All right. Well, I thank you for your time. Thank you for all you've done for me. You gave me a platform, kid from Ironwood, Michigan, to live his dream. You really did. You've done so much for me, and very grateful.
Well, that was a two-way street, Jake.
Well,
You really helped us here figure a lot of things out and establish something that I'd never had before for myself, and that was a strength coach. So I appreciate you too.
Thanks for everything.